Oh, because one night ago. Hello, good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. We have 3 more minutes till we'll really get started, so feel free to just grab your cup of coffee, hang out for a little bit, and then we will start our webinar.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. All right, it is 10 a.m. right now. We still have some folks joining us, so we are going to give it 2 more minutes, and then I will get started with our webinar. But thank you so much for being here. We're looking forward to sharing some information about our HCD TAY program with you all. Hey, thank you for everybody's patience. We're going to go ahead and get started with our webinar. Okay, so hello and welcome to the Department of Housing and Community Development's Transitional Age Youth Program webinar. My name is Mivi No, and I am the TAY Program Manager. Before we dive in, I have a few quick reminders for everyone about some of the buttons available to you at the top toolbar of your Teams window. First of all, the camera and mute buttons allow you to control what we can see and hear on your end. So when given the opportunity to ask any questions or share comments, you can use these buttons to share. However, when the presenters are speaking, please remember to stay on mute. Throughout the webinar, we will give you the opportunity to come off mute to ask questions. However, you are also welcome to use the Q&A button in the top toolbar to type in any questions you have. Our team will be moderating the Q&A to answer any questions. Please note that using the Q&A will make it a lot easier on our team to answer your questions versus using the chat function. Finally, if you're having any trouble seeing the content on the screen or you'd like to zoom in further, you can use the pop out button to open the shared content on a different window. We are currently recording this webinar and we will publish it to our website in the coming weeks once we've completed our accessibility updates. So for our agenda today, we will begin with our goals for the webinar and introductions of our program implementation team. Then our partners from John Burton Advocates for Youth, JBAY, will share some context for the HCD TAY program and why counties should accept these funds. Afterwards, our HCD team will cover the allocation methodology for these funds and the application and contract or standard agreement processes. The State Grants Management Team, or SGM, will then share about eligible uses of funds, the process to request funds, reporting requirements, and outcomes. I will then wrap up with our current fiscal year timeline, county action items, and the opportunity for Q&A. Before we get into the goals of this webinar, I wanted to take a moment to thank all of our county partners who completed our survey over the last couple of weeks. We really appreciate your feedback and we did our best to incorporate your responses into our webinar today. So our webinar goals. The goals for this webinar are as follows. We hope that by attending this webinar, counties will understand the purpose of the TAY program, how TAY allocations are determined, the eligible uses of funds, steps to accept the funds and execute a contract with HCD, and how to request funds and complete the biannual reports. So now we'll do some quick introductions. You'll probably have some familiar names that you've seen before as we've been reaching out to you. So our amazing program implementation team works closely with our counties to accept the funds and enter into a contract with HCD. At the beginning of each fiscal year, our program reps reach out, as they did last week, to introduce themselves and provide support. Our branch manager is Patty Fado, and as I mentioned, I'm Mivi No, the program manager. We have a small but mighty team of 4 program representatives whose names you will likely recognize: Tanya Jackson, Nicholas Baker, Holly Grandes, and Leslie Elkard. So next, I'll give you a brief overview of the TAY program. The Transitional Age Youth, or TAY, program encompasses 3 programs to prevent homelessness and secure and maintain housing for young adults aged 18 to 24 years inclusive, with priority given to those currently or formerly in the foster care or probation systems. The Transitional Housing Program, or THP, on the far left there, allows for the allocation of grants to assist young adults secure and maintain housing, with a priority given to those formerly in foster care or probation. The Housing Navigation and Maintenance Program, or HNMP, allocates grants to support housing navigators identify and assist with housing services for young adults and improve coordination of services and linkages to critical resources. Funds from this program can be used to help young adults with foster youth to independence, or FYI, or family unification programs, so FUP vouchers, find housing. And then finally, the third program under this umbrella is the THP Plus Housing Supplemental Program, or THP SUP. This is a program that supplements the Department of Social Services THP Plus program and allocates grants to eligible counties if the fair market rent for a 2-bedroom apartment is one of the 11 most expensive in the state during the 2020 to 2021 federal fiscal year. I will be sharing more about this methodology in the upcoming slides. But first, I'm going to hand it over to Simone Turek-Lee from John Burton Advocates for Youth to share a little bit of context about the TAY program and why counties should accept these funds.
Thanks, Mivi. If you want to go to the next slide. So good morning, everyone, and thanks for having me on the webinar. As Mimi shared, I'm going to provide some additional context and background because when you look at these programs in statute, the language is pretty broad, it's pretty flexible, but it's important, I think, to know why these programs were established and expanded in the first place. Because what's really at the heart of them is preventing homelessness among youth who have history in the foster care system, with an understanding that, there's such a missed opportunity for homelessness prevention when we aren't securing that transition from the system. So there are no, surprises. We know when youth exit foster care, and we know that we are a state with one of the most, expensive housing markets in the country, especially in certain pockets. And when you combine those two things, there are significant risks. These are young people who largely don't have a safety net. So if housing falls through, there often isn't the I'll move home with my family for a while. That's often not an option. And that can easily turn into homelessness. And so we know that the single most common pathway to chronic adult homelessness is experiencing it as a young person first. And so these programs that HCD administers are really an opportunity to strengthen the stability of what's a very vulnerable transitional period for young people who are literally transitioning into adulthood, right? And getting their stability. And so when you're leaving the foster care system, it's really, instead of looking at it as just risk factors, it's really an opportunity. It's a really important opportunity to provide these types of resources. So really starting with the Housing Navigation and Maintenance Program. This program was initially established in 2019 with a one-time allocation of $5 million. And the intent was to serve current foster youth at that time, really who we call non-minor dependents. So 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds, 20-year-olds who were in really independent foster care placements and responsible for identifying housing on their own. So the idea was, let's provide housing navigators to assist them with identifying housing so that it's more stable, more reliable, longer term, and safe and secure. In 22-23, the program was expanded to $13.7 million. It was also, the name was changed. Some of you recall, this used to be called the Housing Navigators Program. It's now it's a longer acronym, HNMP. And the program was made annual. And so it was really expanded to 13.7 million. The additional $8.7 million was added because at that time, there were 870 housing choice vouchers from HUD, from the federal government here in the state for former foster youth through two programs, the Foster Youth to Independence Initiative and the Family Unification Program, so FYI and FUP vouchers. And these young people also needed help finding housing with their voucher. Not only do they need help finding housing and leasing up, but it's also a federal mandate that when housing authorities request these vouchers from HUD, county child welfare agencies provide supportive services to these youth to help them lease up with their voucher and maintain their housing. But there was no, there's HUD funding for the housing authorities that provide that voucher, that rental subsidy. There was no funding for the county child welfare agencies to fulfill that mandate and really make this program whole. So with this increase, this $8.7 million increase that brought HNMP to $13.7 million, we're really, we were addressing this underutilization of this federal rental subsidy resource, right? So with that increase, this, made state funding available to counties to fulfill their part of the program. Now we've unlocked millions more in federal rental subsidies for former foster youth, and hundreds more youth have secured housing after leaving foster care. So this expansion of HNMP also expanded the priority population, expanded in money and dollars. It also expanded in priority population to include former foster youth up through age 24 to really align with this population of young people that could have these vouchers. So that's the Housing Navigation and Maintenance Program. The Transitional Housing Program, it's a little simpler, but it was established in 2019 and then expanded in 2022 to be $33.3 million. And this funding was initially annual. It was subject to sort of a sunset after a few years if state revenue didn't outweigh expenditures. in the budget. And so this expansion was removed, or excuse me, this sunset was removed. And this funding was really to help counties expand their local transitional housing programs for former foster youth. Now, these programs were initially set up with some realigned funding. So it's now some of the funding is now county funding that they receive, right, for this program. And it was called the THP Plus program. And so this transitional housing program that HCD administers was really intended to expand those local programs because they had long waiting lists. So what we're really looking at as a state is there's two main sort of housing resources for young people after they leave foster care. So it's these transitional housing programs are called THP Plus, which are now a combination of the state transitional housing program dollars and these realigned dollars, and then these housing voucher programs, which are partially federally funded and partially funded, essentially the services through HNMP. What brings us to this last THP Plus Housing Supplement Program is this was set up in 2021, and it was really set up to supplement the monthly rate that counties pay their providers for local THP Plus programs. So that transitional housing we're talking about, it very narrowly targets the THP Plus Housing Supplement Program very narrowly targets the highest cost counties according to fair market rent. So those that have the highest rents in the state. And then determines based on, that realigned THP Plus funding, whether they have an adequate amount to pay a minimum monthly rate without reducing the number of youth they serve. So this funding goes to 5 counties that basically require additional money in order to meet the terms I just outlined. So at the end of the day, kind of what we're looking at is these counties have very high rent. We want them to keep serving the same number of young people. We don't want to reduce that amount down. But as the housing costs have increased, it makes keep maintaining the program very difficult. So this funding supplements in those very difficult difficult housing counties, I should say. All right, next slide, please. And the great news is that this worked how it was supposed to, so these programs did their job. They're doing their job. So that's sort of the headline here. We've seen expansion. That was the expansion that was supposed to happen. It happened. It's still happening. So because of these programs that HCD administers, we've seen significant progress in the number of former foster youth with housing and supportive services through either the housing voucher programs or THP Plus transitional housing. So if you look at the turquoise bar on the screen, first you can see that's the increase in FYI or FUP vouchers, those vouchers from HUD between 2021 and 2024, largely thanks to HNMP. So that's really unlocked many more vouchers for young people. We went from 870 vouchers in 2021 to 2,049 vouchers in 2024. That's a 136% increase. And much of that funded by the federal government, right? And the orange bar, that's THP Plus, transitional housing. And we went from 1,309 housing slots in 2021 to 1,664 slots in 2024. That's a 27% increase. Overall, obviously, this is significant, a 70% increase in housing, period. Like when you look at those two programs combined, where we're serving over 3,700 young people at a moment in time with housing and supportive services. What this graph does not show, because I just want to also share this, is that part of the expansion of THP, Transitional Housing Program, was giving counties, and through that housing supplement program, was giving counties the ability to pay monthly rates that are closer to what it costs to run the program, right? Like I said earlier, if you live in a county with very high rent, the monthly cost of serving one young person is very high. It's the rent, it's the supportive services, you have to pay all your staff, right? There's costs, there's money provided directly to young people. There's a lot of costs there. And providers have to supplement with private fundraising when the rent gets too high and they don't want to serve yet less youth, right? So again, this funding not just allowed people to counties to serve more young people, but to get closer to what it actually costs to run the program, which really, what is that equal to? It helps them retain their providers, and it helps their providers retain quality apartment units for the young people they serve, which equals a better experience for young people that are in their program. So I think this sort of makes the case why you should accept the funding, right? Like these funding sources are an incredible piece of our continuum to provide a safety net to young people after they've left foster care and as they're transitioning. And especially right now, when there's a lot of uncertainty about future funding on many levels, we know that this is here. And we know that, I'll say one last thing before I'm probably at time here, but the federal government has made very clear that the FYI and FUP program, these vouchers, are not going away. They are not part of the cuts that are happening at the federal level. And so I think it's just important to understand that. Keep getting them. Use your HNP dollars to support those programs. And, I think with a lot of uncertainty, we know that these programs are here right now, and we just definitely want to see counties continue to access the funding and continue to serve young people. So thanks again for having me on the webinar.
Yeah, thank you so much, Simone, and thank you so much for sharing just the context and, the reasons for why accepting the funds is going to be so helpful to the TAY population community. Okay, well, now we are going to do a brief run through of the allocation methodology for each of the 3 programs. So buckle in, it'll be a little bit of math, a little bit of statutes as well. But we are hoping through this, counties can better understand how allocations are allocated and why the amounts fluctuate each year based on the data sets and calculated need for each eligible county. So for the TAY program allocation methodology, by the California Health and Safety Code referenced on the slide for this program, the HCD TAY program consults with 4 key stakeholders on our methodology each year. These stakeholders are the California Department of Social Services, the Department of Finance, the County Welfare Directors Association, and John Burton Advocates for Youth. For the THP program, or Transitional Housing Program, we use data that we received from the Department of Social Services each year. This data set is the point-in-time number of all child welfare or probation supervised youth, age 18 through 20, who have an open child welfare placement episode in the Child Welfare Services case management system for each county in California. For the current fiscal year, we received January 2025 youth and foster care data, and we determined each county's percent to total of the CDSS, or that's Department of Social Services data. We then weigh this percent evenly with the county's percent to total of the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD, point-in-time count of homeless unaccompanied young adults ages 18 to 24. The HUD PIT count is conducted every other year, so for this current fiscal year, we are using 2024 HUD PIT count data. This 50-50 weighted total is the county's average of need, which we use to determine how much of the total 33.3 million of THP funds to proportionally allocate to each county. Counties that have a 0 caseload in both HUD, PIT, and CDSS data are determined ineligible for the funds because they do not have a demonstrated need based on the caseloads. Moving on to the Housing Navigation and Maintenance Program methodology. So for this program, the data set we receive is from CDSS, and it is the point-in-time count of all youth aged 17 through 21 who have an open child welfare or probation supervised placement episode in the Child Welfare Services case management system. Similar to the THP program, we receive January 2025 youth and foster care data, and we determine each county's percent to total of the statewide need and proportionally distribute the $13.7 million. And then for THP Plus Housing Supplemental Program, or THP SUP, as someone mentioned, there's 11 counties with the most expensive fair market rent for a 2-bedroom apartment in the state during the federal fiscal year 2020 to 2021 that are potentially eligible for this funding. Based on self-reported county contracted bed capacity for THP Plus per month, we multiply this reported bed count number by the minimum required rate of $2,882 per month and compare it to the allocated amount in the 2011 realignment for the THP Plus county fiscal letter. If the amount in the letter is less than the calculated total, the county is eligible for a THP SUP allocation. So based off of this calculation, there are 6 total counties that are eligible for THP SUP funding. They are Alameda, Contra Costa, Los Angeles, Orange, San Diego, and Santa Clara. And this allocation amount remains the same for those 6 counties each year. So that was a lot of information. So before we move on to our next section, we just wanted to see, are there any questions that our team can help answer? We do see that there is one question in the Q&A, and it's about if there are HCV vouchers available. Because it sounds like for the housing authority that Teresa's at, there are none specifically available for this population. So with those HCV vouchers, those are through the Housing and Urban Development Department. So our State Department does not issue out any of those vouchers. So you'd have to reach out to HUD and kind of go through that process to see what it would be like to get FYI or FUP vouchers. Yeah. Okay. What other questions do we have? You're also welcome to unmute and just say your question as well if you don't want to type it out.
Hi, Vicki Miller from Sonoma County.
Yes.
I don't know if it's appropriate to ask this question. I've been emailing with you all and with J-Bay. So before I ask the question, do you want me to not do that or?
No, you can ask your question, Vicki.
Okay, well, so I'm just wondering what the efforts are to reevaluate the methodology for the THP program. So we're one of the counties that was greatly impacted and reduced by 60%, which is pretty significant. And using the HUD pit count isn't reflective of what the need is since it's a 3-year program. So those who are already in the program aren't going to show up in that HUD pit count. Right? They're already in the program, but yet we're serving them for 3 years. So I'm just wondering what the efforts are to just reevaluate and to get, and again, so that's the one part. And then the other is how to just stabilize the funding. It's very difficult to run 3-year programs when there's a fluctuation. So anything you want to say about that?
Yeah, thanks, Vicki. Yeah, we totally understand and see how for Sonoma County, the reduction in funds is going to greatly impact your services to the youth that you're currently serving. For our programs, we are currently reevaluating our methodology. So we're reaching out to the Department of Social Services, to the County Child Welfare Directors Association, and to other partners like within HCD and externally too, to see what other potential sources of data we can use that might be a little bit more consistent or more reflective of the population that we're trying to serve. Because yeah, having it fluctuate each year makes it very unpredictable for counties. And so some of the potential options that we're looking into, and of course, we're going to be reaching out to counties for some of their feedback as well, is what it might look like to have a cap to how much the allocation amount changes year over year. Or to see what other data sets. So we are researching it. We're doing our data analysis to see who's most impacted, who's not impacted, how does it potentially impact rural counties versus urban counties differently. So we are doing our research there and hopefully looking to propose a allocation methodology that might be a little bit better to meet the needs of our counties. So we totally hear you, and we're definitely working on it, and we'll be as transparent as possible throughout this process as we look for alternative options and run that through our stakeholder group as well.
Thank you for that. And do you foresee that will be in place for the next fiscal year?
Yeah, that's a good question. Our goal was to try to get something in place for next fiscal year, but as you know, things change so quickly, so it's hard to say something concrete. But we already do have our research and data analysis in progress, so I know in the future we are looking to do that. And like I mentioned, as soon as we have more information, we'll let you know, okay, if our methodology is changing, here's about when we're expecting that to impact our counties, so that you can have as much of a heads up as possible.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Vicki. Any other questions before we continue on? Okay, well, in that case, I'm going to move on to our next portion. It will get a little bit more technical in terms of how to request funds. And then it looks like I just saw one more question come through. In terms of requesting vouchers, I did see that Simone mentioned in one of the answers that you can reach out to her as well. I think J-Bay has been a great partner to our counties to be able to get a hold of some of those vouchers if available. And so we will make sure to have Simone's contact info in the chat for you all, and we can follow up with that as well. So that way you can reach out to J-Bay and see how they can help you connect with other counties or avenues to get those vouchers. Okay, so then we are going to move on to our next section, which is the application process. Our program rep, Nicholas Baker, will be going over the application process for you all. All right, we had some audio issues here for this section, it looks like. So I will go ahead. Oh, actually, hang on one second. Sorry about that. Oh, no, it's not going. Okay, I will go ahead and walk us through the allocation acceptance form. So this document is one that you all would have received via email last week. So this acceptance form is the document that indicates a county is interested in accepting the funding. So there's an acceptance form for each of the programs, the HNNP, THP, and then if the county is eligible for THP SUP, there will be a tab for that program as well. So we will use the THP form as an example. There are a few items on this document that we'd like to focus on. So the first one here is the applicant county, where this arrow is. You will choose your county from the drop-down box. So you'll have to scroll down, get to your county's name, and in the applicant county section. This section will then auto-populate the county's award amount in the county allocation box in the top right of the document. And then directly below the legal name of the county can be manually entered as well. So please ensure that the name that's entered is what will be stated in the resolution. So a lot of times we'll see that the allocation acceptance form will go back to a county, and it's because there's a mismatch or discrepancy between what we see on the allocation acceptance form and what we see on the resolution. This is the window where you will see the county allocation amount. This will be auto-populate once the applicant county is selected. And again, our program implementation reps are amazing and they have pre-populated a lot of these forms for you all before they sent them out. And so if you have any questions whatsoever, you can definitely reach out to your assigned program representative. Right, and then this is where the authorized representative's name will be. So this is whoever will sign on behalf of the county. Directly below is where the county's program contact is provided. So if the person who has been designated as the authorized representative changes, it may impact the county's ability to draw down funds. In this case, please reach out to the program representative assigned to your county as soon as possible so they can walk you through the steps to make sure that we have the correct name and person identified who can sign off on the paperwork. This next section is where the authorized representative signs and dates a completed allocation acceptance form. So we do need a signature. Great. And then there are two new components to our allocation acceptance form that you may have noticed, but we do want to draw attention to them. The first is the housing first elements that are required as part of accepting a TAY program allocation. And so previously we have referenced the housing first welfare and institutions code, but now we have it all listed out. And then the other item is the California Public Records Act. And so this application, including any and all supplemental documents during the review process, are public records. So we just wanted to put that reminder out there. All right, and now we will pass it over to Leslie.
Thank you, Mimi. Hi, my name is Leslie Ucker. I'll be going over the Government Agency Taxpayer ID form, or better known as the Gov-10. This form is essential as it establishes the designated payee for the award. The top portion of this form is the principal government agency name. Only the legal city or county name should be listed and match the resolution. This area should not list out sub-departments. The next part is the remit to address. This is where the payment is sent and can include the department or sub-department. The zip code, please ensure that you include the complete 9-digit zip code with additional 4-digit suffix. The federal employer identification number must include all 9 digits and must be registered to the city or the county. The subsidiary departments. You may either leave this section blank or include any sub-departments that are part of the application. The last part is the contact person's name, phone number, and sign. The bottom section is straightforward. Please ensure all fields are completed, including the contact person's name, phone number, and signature. Now I'll be going over the board resolution sample. This section covers important points to keep in mind when completing board resolutions. A sample board resolution is included in the allocation acceptance package. Highlighted instructions are provided for all blank fields that need to be completed. A resolution checklist is also included, outlining the minimum requirements if you choose to draft your own resolution. Review the entire sample board resolution carefully before submitting to ensure accuracy and compliance. Let's go over some key things to remember. Enter the exact amounts listed on the THP, H&MP, and THP SUP allocation acceptance form in all sections where it asks for the allocation amount. Double the allocation amount when entering figures in sections stating up to the amount authorized by the department, but not to exceed. For example, if the allocation amount is $100,000, you would insert $200,000. Following the recommended instructions on the board resolution template will ensure accuracy and prevent going back to the board and delays in processing the standard agreement. For this section of the board resolution, use only the title of the authorized county official. Do not include the individual's name. Listing a name can cause delays if there is an administrative change or turnover in the position. Detailed instructions are provided under this section. Remember to remove the instructions in blue from the board resolution before submitting. Now, let's focus on the attestation clause. To avoid delays in processing the standard agreement, the resolution must include an attestation clause. This section is where we see the most challenges that delay processing of the standard agreement. The resolution must include an attestation clause to move forward with the standard agreement process. Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie. Hello, my name is Holly Grandes, and I will be going over the standard agreement process. Once we have received and reviewed all necessary documents from the county, the GovTIN allocation acceptance form and board resolution, you will want to be on the lookout for an email from our HCD contracts office. This email will be sent to the county's authorized signer and contact person that was listed on the application. There will be instructions in the email with the standard agreement attached, which will need to be signed by the county's authorized signer. Please note, if the authorized signer is expected to be absent for an extended period and unable to sign, a letter of designee on county letterhead is needed, appointing their designee to sign on their behalf. Next, we will go over the documents that are included in the attachment. This is the SCD 213, which requires the signature from the county's authorized signer or designee if applicable. Please note, if the authorized signer has resigned from their position before the standard agreement has been signed, please provide HCD with the name and title of their replacement along with board minutes showing the new appointment. The next attachment will also include the Exhibit A, which explains the authority, purpose, and scope of work. It also includes monitoring and reporting requirements, effective date, and expenditure deadline date. There is no signature required on this document. The final document included in the attachment is the Exhibit B. This includes the budget detail and payment provisions. No signature is required on this document. The final document included in the attachment is the Exhibit C. This includes the budget detail and payment provisions. No signature is required on this document. After reviewing and signing the standard agreement, you will want to send the forms back to the contract analyst who originally sent the package. This is important to prevent delay. Once the county's authorized signer has signed the SCD 213 and sent back to the contracts department, it will be reviewed and an executed standard agreement contract will be emailed to the county, which includes the SCD 213 signed by HCD. And here's our process map for your visual interpretation.
Great. Thank you, Holly. Good morning, everyone. My name is Jason Blair, and I'm the section manager in the Division of State Financial Assistance State Grants Management branch for the Transitional Age Youth Program. Once a standard agreement is fully executed, the contract transitions over to the State Grants Management team. This is the group responsible for the contract monitoring, providing support, and offering technical assistance on the reporting requirements and funding requests. I would like to start by introducing the team that is here to assist you and who will be your main points of contact once that occurs. We have representatives Leonore, Kathy, Karen, and Carla, and then our state grants manager, Tony, and we also have a program specialist, Pilar, who assists. Once the standard agreement has been fully executed, you will receive an introductory email from the State Grants Management assigned representative, which will include their contact information and important details about your contract, including how to request funds, the disbursement and expenditure deadlines, the contract expiration date, the reporting requirements, a project contact form for you to complete detailing the current contact information for your organization, and links to the updated biannual report and request for funds forms. Your assigned representative is available to assist and answer any questions you may have at any point in time once a contract is fully executed. Okay, now I'm going to hand it over to Tony, who will talk about the flexibility of the program and eligible use of funds. Tony? Hey, Tony, if you're talking, we can't hear you.
My apologies there. My name is Tony Chopoulos. I manage the Transitional Age Program, or TAY, in the State Grants Management branch. Our unit manages all of your TAY contracts and provides technical support to counties using our funds. The TAY program prioritizes and supports young adults transitioning from foster care or previously in the probation system through three key initiatives: the Navigation and Maintenance Program, HNMP, Transitional Housing Program, THP, and the Transitional Housing Supplemental Program, THP SUP. Funding is flexible, supporting direct services, participant needs, and program operations at the county level. Examples of some of the approved expenditures are as follows, but are not necessarily limited to. For HNMP, housing navigation services, including navigation staff salaries, benefits, mileage, equipment such as laptops and printers, small office equipment, office supplies, rent, and other operational costs. For THP, housing-related costs such as rent subsidies, security deposits, including essential living items such as a refrigerator, kitchen table, utensils, bed, bus passes to and from work, to name a few. Also under the approved expenditure banner for THP is housing case management, including emergency support for youth, foster youth, preventing homelessness among young adults, improving coordination services and linkages to community resources, including child welfare and continuum of care, and community outreach. THP SUP supplements the rental costs in the 11 most expensive counties in the state. If you have any questions about approved expenditures, please contact your SGM representative for technical support. SGM encourages a common sense approach to housing related expenditures, allowing for a broad range of support tailored to participant needs. One of the benefits of the TAY program is its ability to create seamless program partnerships with other supplemental homelessness initiatives, such as HomeKey, without restrictions, enhancing its impact on housing stability. THP and HMP funds can also be interchanged between programs. SGM's role in program administration is managing contracts, overseeing and maintaining program integrity, ensuring compliance with program guidelines, providing technical assistance and education to grantees, auditing biannual reports, and processing requests for funds. Now I'm going to pass this over to Carla Navarro-Amonero, who will provide further details on reporting, requesting funds, and where to find the most current forms on our website. Carla?
Thank you, Tony, and good morning, everyone. The most up-to-date request for funds and biannual reporting forms can be easily downloaded from the HCD website. These forms may be submitted to your HCD rep or the TAY SGM general inbox. Upon visiting hcd.ca.gov, as shown on the left picture, you will find the Grants and Funding tab across the top banner. Select the Reporting and Compliance Grants programs, and you will see the list of active state grants as displayed on the right. Highlighted towards the bottom of the page, you will find the Transitional Age Youth's state grant programs. Please note 2 helpful document links in the middle of this page: Introduction to SGM and the SGM New Grantee FAQs. We hope you find this information very helpful. Now, once the program is selected, in this case TAY, you will have access to current round details and links for reporting and compliance forms. Let's review the request for funds form. The date of the last revision is highlighted in red on the upper left corner of the document. This date is crucial as it helps you compare it with previously submitted requests to ensure you're using the most current version. Section 1 and 2 are the contractor's contact information. Highlighted on the right, let us know the type of request. Is it an advance or a reimbursement of funds? Upon receiving a welcome letter from the State Grants Management team of your active contract, you may request a full advance of the funds awarded. This is highly encouraged. The process to receive the funds can take between 6 to 8 weeks as our team approves the request, and then we forward the request to our fiscal team at HCD to then further forward the request to the State Controller's Office. In future rounds of TAY, there will be a liquidation date. However, on current active awards, your SGM team will remind you 3 months in advance of the expenditure deadline to draw any funds that may not be dispersed. Section 3 of the form, it's the expenditure breakdown, and there are currently 3 awarded funds displayed. If your county is not awarded THP SUP, you may leave that blank. For technical support or program questions, we encourage you to reach out to the assigned representative or the TAY inbox for this form. Each service agreement will detail the monitoring and reporting periods. The TAY program requires biannual reporting with 2 annual reports due on January 31st and July 31st during the active period of the agreement. To ensure you are using the most current version of the biannual report, please download it from our website. Once downloaded, you can find the revision date on the upper left-hand corner of the report. Again, if you need any help with the download or have any technical questions, feel free to reach out and ask. Biannual reports must include, but are not limited to, the number of homeless youth served, description of how the Child Welfare Agency identified and oversaw the housing navigators and the program, the number of current and former foster youth served, the number of people served who are currently and formerly on probation, the number of homeless youths who exited homeless into temporary and into permanent housing, along with subpopulation data. In section 6, it is important to fill out the narrative question areas, such as your experience with successes and barriers. If there were periods where funds were not utilized, explain the reasons. This could be due to delays in project timelines, unforeseen circumstances, or other factors. Providing this context can help in planning and support. Do not hesitate to mention areas where you need help. HCD is here to assist. And identifying these areas can lead to more effective support and resource allocation. A complete biannual report is crucial to the success of the program. I will turn it back to Jason Blair to go over the up-to-date outcomes of TAY. Jason?
Great, thank you, Carla. Hi again. We'd like to take a moment to highlight the impact of the program and recognize the dedication and hard work of each grantee who served these youth. The following information you see is drawn from the self-reported biannual reports that Carla was just talking about, submitted by the counties to the department. And this is covering data from the program's inception through December of 2024. I would like to highlight that there have been over 15,000 youth served throughout California. It's a great representation of the collective impact of the program, and definitely something to celebrate. Now I'll hand it over to Mevi, who will share the upcoming timelines. Mevi?
Hello again, everyone. All right. Thank you, Jason. Well, next up, I'm going to cover our anticipated timeline for fiscal year 25-26. We have received a lot of feedback about wanting to have access to the funds more quickly and having a more consistent timeline. That said, the TAY program implementation team has done some really great work over the course of the last year to help us build a more streamlined, consistent timeline. So our timeline relies on two important events before we can send our application out to eligible counties. These two events are, one, receiving the data set from the Department of Social Services, which we now have a data sharing agreement in place that allows HCD to receive this data by April of each year. And two, the governor's budget being approved, which typically happens at the very end of June or beginning of July. Once these two things occur, the TAY team will send our application out to counties, which, as you saw for this round, was in August. The couple weeks between the governor's budget approval and the invitation or application being sent is due to an internal process to get service locations for our funding. From there, we give counties a month to submit their applications, which includes the acceptance form, the GovTIN, and board resolution. After the deadline, we go through a reallocation process that has been approved by the stakeholder group, and we aim to go to HCD's Internal Loan Committee, or ILC, by November. So with approval from ILC, our goal is to send our award letters prior to the holiday season. So in November, hopefully early or mid-November for this year. After the award letters are sent, the standard agreement execution timeline is up to 90 days. The total length of time for this process is dependent on if the TAY team has received all documents from the county, including a signed board resolution with a necessary attestation clause. We anticipate having all standard agreements executed by January. So moving forward, the anticipated timeline for each round of TAY, we hope that it will follow the same timeline. So to have the application released in August, November for our award letters, and contract execution within the following 90 days. So with all that said, here are the county action items. So we're looking to our county partners to submit their TAY application package, including the allocation acceptance form, the GovTIN, and the Board of Supervisors resolution. We understand that the process of getting the board resolution signed may take longer than the deadline provided, so it may not be possible to get to your board of resolution or get to your board of supervisors before that September deadline. So please communicate that to your TAY program representative, and they can give you an extension that might be needed to get a signed board resolution. In the meantime, though, you can submit unsigned documents by the deadline so our team can begin processing your application materials. And the sooner you can get to it, that's super helpful to us as we process your applications. On the state grants management side, the next reporting period is January 31st, 2026. And you can reach out to the TAY program inboxes for any assistance you need with these action items. We will share email addresses for these inboxes at the conclusion of this webinar. But before we get to those email addresses, we will now open it up for a Q&A for any questions that any of our attendees may have about the content that's been shared, and then we'll wrap up right after that. So again, you can go ahead and put that into the chat and we'll try to get a hold of that in the Q&A, sorry. Or you can just go ahead and unmute and ask your question.
I have a question.
Yes.
So I know that you mentioned that this funding was for like former foster youth with priority to them, and then, you know, kiddos that were on probation. But what about just youth in general? If you weren't getting like a ton of referrals for, you know, children that were in former foster youth, would you be able to use that funding for just children of those same age group that were experiencing homelessness?
Yes, that's a great question, and our SGM team can help me out if I'm going in the wrong direction. But yes, the priority is for former foster care probation youth. However, you are able to serve youth within that age range, 18 to 24, if they're experiencing homelessness. I believe you can find more information about that on the SGM page, where they have a great FAQ, and it does cover a lot of this information too, and we'll be sure to share out the link for that FAQ.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Any additional questions? Yes, go ahead.
Hi, I'm wondering, we contract out these services to a provider, a contract provider. Are we able to keep 10% or a percentage of the funds for admin costs for administering the contracts? Or does it need to be fully provided to that service provider?
Gotcha.
Yeah, I'll
Thank you
take
for
this
that,
one, maybe.
Michelle.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Jason.
And I saw your comment or a question in the chat or the Q&A as well. The short answer is yes, although I'd like to have you work with the assigned state grants management rep so we could better understand how your program is set up. But we also understand the administrative components for funneling the funds from us to you to your subcontractor.
Okay, thank you.
Can I add to that a little bit? You can use your HNMP funds specifically for running your program, so you probably take that money out of there.
Okay, thank you.
Shannon.
Hey, thank you. I have a question about the information that we gather about participants that we report. When you have several contracts going at once and you've helped a participant through different contracts, does that look like in the reporting that we've served like three, because we don't gather or we don't report individual demographics or participant names, you know, that kind of thing? Does it make it look like we served more people than we really have? I was just wondering about that, about the questions, if there's going to be any updates to kind of how we report that information. Thank you.
Thanks for your question, Shannon. I will defer to our state grants management team on this one. Jason, you are popular today.
Sure. Great question. Actually, we were having some internal dialogue around that currently. And I would envision that there will be some updates and some guidance coming out for the monthly reporting on that to minimize any duplicity of how many youth have been served.
Thank you.
Feel free to put up your hand, raise your hand, or unmute if you'd like.
More questions coming.
I do see in the Q&A that there are a lot of questions about vouchers, and for our program, we are just providing funds to help with the process of utilizing those vouchers, but we do not administer the vouchers or anything like that. And so I did see that Simone has provided her contact information. So if you have specific questions about vouchers, the better avenue to ask those questions would be reaching out to Simone at jbay.org, and they can definitely point you in the right direction or help your county specifically with getting those vouchers or whatever support process that they're able to provide. Laura, yes.
Good morning, Laura Malone from Contra Costa County. A quick reporting best practice question. And it kind of goes to what was just said about the multiple funding streams happening at the same time, but it also has to do with the timing of claiming the funding versus serving the young people. So, when we talk about the biannual reports, and let's just use the last one, for example, January through end of June, we expended a particular amount of money during that time frame, which we requested. But because of the way our claiming process is, we're usually about 90 days behind the actual expenditure occurring. So with our kiddos or young people who were served during January through June may not align identically to the funds being claimed. Does that kind of make sense, right? Because we've got a claiming offset on when we claim it. So I'm just wondering, is everybody just really kind of taking those as two separate components? We served this many young people in January through June, and we expended this amount of money between January and June.
Yeah, Laura, thanks. I mean, that the way you paraphrase at the end is in alignment with what others are doing as well.
Okay, good to know. Thank you so much.
Okay, any other questions? Sorry, I'm gonna go ahead and take a look at the Q&A as well.
Yeah, we have a hand up. Jonathan, you go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
a real quick question. I had previously asked about it, but I just want to make sure it's clear. So the contracts or the agreement, excuse me, the expiration date is 5 years from execution, but the expenditure dates are usually 2 years or a year or 2 years, depending on what it is. So once all the funds have been expended, technically the report should still be submitted all the way through to the end of that 5-year agreement end date, correct? Or unless we manually decide to terminate the contract early with either with HCD.
Yeah, it's correct that the reporting would carry through.
So if we were to say, okay, we've expended all the funds, we're good with terminating that contract before that 5-year date, just reach out to the contract analysts, let them know, hey, we want to stop it as of whatever date.
Yeah, you could work directly with the representative on that to have an early closeout of the contract.
Perfect. Great. Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, Jonathan. Thanks, Jason. All right, so there is a question in the Q&A. Can you please provide what the HNMP funds can be used for again? So I'm gonna kind of share again what Tony had shared, but then also just open it up to discussion, because I think that's a great question in terms of being able to know that both SGM and our program implementation teams work hand in hand to make sure the counties, have the support that you all need. And so part of that is doing technical assistance calls. So whether it's through the process of accepting the funds or utilizing the funds you currently have, like, we are always open to meeting with you or having a conversation if you have any specific questions about how those funds can be used, or if you have, some specific situation that you're looking to ask about. But in general, though, for the HNP funds, as Tony shared, they can be used for housing navigation services, including staff salaries, benefits and mileage, equipment such as laptops or printers, office supplies, rent, and operational costs. But I'll also open it up to Tony, Jason, and the SGM team to add to that if needed, or if you have something specific that you're looking to see if it's eligible, from Sonia Wright.
Yeah, you covered everything nicely. Nothing to add.
Just reading your bullet points, so pretty straightforward there. But yeah, if you have some specific scenarios that you're looking to ask about, we're happy to chat with you about that. Just send an email to us. We can either respond over email or set up a meeting so we can talk about it. And then we did see the question about the recording of the meeting and the PowerPoint. So as soon as this webinar is over, we will be posting it on our website. Just give us a little bit of time so that we can make sure it goes through the right accessibility checks and everything, and we will post it. And that way you'll have the slides and the recording as well. Hey, any other questions? All right, well, this isn't your only opportunity to ask questions. You can always reach out to us. Thank you again so much for attending our HCD TAY webinar. We hope this has been helpful to you all. Like I just mentioned, we'll be posting this webinar on our website soon, but in the meantime, if you have any questions, you can reach out to our program implementation and management team at tay@hcd.ca.gov. And for any questions related to active contracts, requesting funds, or reporting requirements, you can reach out to the TAY State Grants Management Team at taysgm@hcd.ca.gov. Thank you again so much and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.